In high school, I deliberately scored poorly on tests and paid the poor school heartthrob to tutor me, just to help him out financially, but he resented me for taking time away from his childhood sweetheart. When he learned I outscored him by 100 points on the college entrance exam, he cursed me, calling me a hypocritical, scheming rich girl who'd never find true love. Later, he got me killed. He even came to my grave to warn me, if there's a next life, spare him the fake pity and stop forcing affections that were never meant to be. As he wished, given another chance, I never asked him to tutor me again. He had all the time in the world to wash dishes and wait tables with his childhood sweetheart at every diner in town. 1. Ian Jemming, the school heartthrob, lost his father in a fire 3 years ago while he was on duty. Our family's chain restaurant was located in the commercial district where his father fought the blaze. In gratitude for his father's sacrifice, our family donated 1 million yuan to his family afterward. His mother was hospitalized due to grief-induced illness. By the time Ian Jemming and I got into the same public high school, his family had nearly exhausted all the firefighters' death benefits and donations left by his father. My mother found out we were in the same honors class. When she tried to donate another million to his family, Ian Jemming coldly refused. Stop humiliating me. Later, I came up with a plan. I deliberately scored at the bottom of the placement test, then paid premium rates for Ian Jemming to tutor me. This way, I could protect his pride while naturally freeing him from restaurant shifts to focus on his mother and studies. But in our past life, he ended up despising me for it. First, he resented me for constantly asking him to tutor me, which took away time he could have spent with his childhood sweetheart Lu Junjun. This led to her dating the school bully from a neighboring school. Second, he felt humiliated that I scored 100 points higher than him on the college entrance exam. He believed a mediocre student like me had no right to outperform him, let alone use it as an excuse to pursue him. He swore he'd never like me, cursing this scheming rich girl to never find true love. Later, he buckled down and was admitted to a prestigious graduate school that outranked his undergraduate institution. During his 3rd year of grad school, he secured angel investment to launch a medical aesthetics startup. His natural good looks as the campus heartthrob lent credibility to his cosmetic business ventures. Before long, he'd made his first 10 million yuan. When he finally mustered the courage to reconnect with long-lost Lu Junjun, he discovered she was already pregnant with twins for a wealthy businessman 10 years her senior. Compared to the tycoon's family fortune, Ian Jemming's 10 million was just a drop in the bucket, so Ian Jemming took out all his hatred on me. He unusually invited me to his clinic for cosmetic procedures, then stealthily injected venom throughout my body, only to dismiss my death as a trivial medical accident. My parents originally wanted to seek justice for me. Upon learning the accident occurred at Ian Jemming's company, out of respect for his late father, a firefighting hero, they took the hero's descendant at his word. They even held my funeral with Ian Jemming's help. After the funeral, Ian Jemming swindled fresh investment money from my parents, then came gloating about it at my graveside. Then he warned me with pure venom, if there's a next life, don't you dare play the saint and pretend to pity him. He never needed my family's charity or handouts, and he certainly wouldn't stoop to tutoring spoiled rich girls like me for money. My own arrogance killed me, and he has no regrets. Perhaps the heavens took pity on my unjust and tragic death, granting me this chance to start over. This time, I won't dim my light or endure a single second of suffering for that scumbag, and I'll make damn sure that bastard never gets another penny from my family. I won't let him hurt me ever again. 2. Clutching my rock-bottom final exam report card, I practically sprinted home. Seeing my parents looking decades younger gave me an eerie sense of time travel. Mom took my report card, popped an orange slice into my mouth, and said pointedly, "Are you just home? Get some vitamin C to boost immunity, then take your fish oil. Don't forget you were the city's top middle school graduate. No need to overdo this underachiever act." With tears in my eyes and an orange slice in my mouth, I replied, "Starting today, there's no need to have Ian Jemming tutor me at home anymore, and I won't deliberately rank last in the next exam either. Also, if he ever tries to work at any of our family restaurants again, please tell the managers to turn him down." My mother looked stunned and exchanged glances with my father. In my past life, though my parents had agreed to let me flunk exams to help Ian Jemming, it cost them their dignity for quite some time. The daughter of our city's top middle school exam scorer became the perpetual underachiever in her elite public high school class. 2 whole years, from sophomore to junior year. People accused me of cheating on the entrance exams. saying my true colors showed after entering public school. A family obsessed with business schemes could never focus on academics, hiring the school's top-ranked heartthrob as a tutor. Just another calculated move, trading resources to upgrade their genetic pool. These days it's either beauties paired with trolls or average girls forcing chemistry with hunks. An absolute eyesore and health hazard for everyone. Whispers like these kept drifting to our family's ears, but from the start, we'd resolved to help Ian Jemming, the firefighter hero's descendant. My parents had no choice but to endure these unfair criticisms. What's more, I got completely invested and even developed a bit of a crush on Ian Jemming. I always had his back, no matter what. Let's be honest, it's perfectly normal for a teenage girl like me to appreciate a handsome face, right? Add to that my admiration for Ian Jemming as a firefighter's descendant and all those CEO romance novels I'd read, so when I kept interacting with his aloof self daily, I just fell for him inexplicably. That's why my mom kept getting anxious and would frequently drop hints to snap me out of it, but I promised her I wouldn't confess my feelings until after the college entrance exams. I blinked back the welling tears and declared firmly, I'm dead serious, I'm going to study alone in the study. The doorbell rang just as I finished speaking. Housekeeper Aunt Jo ushered in the aloof and arrogant Ian Jemming. Looking at 18-year-old Ian Jemming's face now just makes me sick, but I held it back, curling my lips into a sneer. Must be such a chore tutoring a spoiled rich girl like me. You can leave now, but you'll still get paid for today. Feel free to reject the handout if it offends your pride. Don't bother coming and starting tomorrow. My patience may be vast, but I won't keep kissing up to someone who treats me like dirt. 3. The searing pain of venom coursing through my veins haunted my nightmares at midnight. I woke up screaming, drenched in cold sweat. Hearing my voice, Mom rushed to my room to comfort me. Yuja, what's wrong? Mom wiped the sweat from my forehead and said, don't be scared, it was just a dream. Your parents will always protect you, just a dream. Looking up at my mother's worried face, I hugged her tightly and pleaded, Mom, can you make sure none of our partner stores or restaurants hire Ian Jemming for part-time work? Don't give him any chance to earn money, not even dishwashing or waiting tables. My mom looked puzzled. Yuja, how could your attitude toward Ian Jemming change so drastically in just one day? Yesterday evening, I noticed he left our house with a strange expression. Did something happen between you two? Telling Mom about my rebirth would have shocked her, so I simply explained how Ian Jemming had repeatedly shown disdain for our family's money. When Mom initially offered his family a 1 million yuan donation, he coldly refused. That much was true. Mom nodded in understanding and accepted my explanation, but she added that if none of our family's chain restaurants or partners hired Ian Jemming, he'd likely end up working for our competitors, that notorious Yao's restaurant. Infamous for mistreating waitstaff yet still thriving despite the flood of bad reviews. I nodded. This was exactly my intention. After my rebirth, I set my revenge plan in motion to clear my blocked milk ducts. First, I'll make Ian Jemming understand his true worth. Then, they tortured him beyond endurance. In the end, they left his body in pieces. 4. Just as expected, a week later, Ian Jemming took a part-time job at Yao's restaurant. At first, he didn't mind being turned down by his previous workplace since Lu Junjun wasn't working there either. Ian Jemming followed Lu Junjun to work at Yao's restaurant. Even though the hourly wage was 10 yuan less than other places, he didn't mind. Being with Lu Junjun was all that mattered. Every afternoon after school, Ian Jemming would meet her at the crosswalk opposite campus, hand in hand, sharing an ear of corn. They'd take the bus together to wash dishes and wait tables. His mother's hospital bills were initially covered by my family paying him 5 times the standard tutoring rate, but hospitalization burns through money. The funds were gone in under a month, even working himself to the bone for 90 hours a month at 15.3 yuan per hour. Ian Jemming only earned 1,377 yuan, paid mid-month no less. That couldn't even cover a single day of his mother's hospital expenses. He begged the hospital for a 1-week extension, promising to find a way to cover the payment. His solution was to work longer shifts as a waiter, either taking more night shifts or skipping classes for part-time work. His attentive homeroom teacher soon noticed his unusual behavior and privately called him into the office to see if she could help resolve his situation. Facing his teacher, he had no choice but to confess his family's dire financial straits and his mother's urgent need for hospitalization funds. The homeroom teacher thought he had it tough. And considering he was a top 10 student in the grade, didn't want to let such promising talent go to waste, so she personally donated 1,000 yuan first, then promised to organize class-wide or even grade-wide donations for Yin Jiaming. This time, though Yin Jiaming showed a hint of reluctance, he ultimately nodded in the face of reality, during self-study period, when the donation QR code made its way from the front row to mine and Li Shui's desk. My deskmate Li Shui generously scanned the QR code to transfer 200 yuan, then sighed, donating 200 yuan to Yin Jiaming is already my limit, that's my entire month's breakfast budget plus my life-saving boba money. Yujia, if you donate more later, don't you dare laugh at me, okay? Without pausing my test or looking up, I replied, don't worry, I'm not donating. Li Shui gasped, what? Didn't you hire Yin Jiaming for private tutoring at premium rates before? Technically he's kinda like your mentor, plus, your family's quite well off and charitable, you know, like in Parasite where the rich have the luxury to be generous with their kindness. Oops, my bad, that came out wrong. Sorry for the guilt trip, just noticed you've been acting off lately and couldn't resist prying. I set down my pen and passed the QR code to the person behind me, then I replied to Li Shui, but there's such thing as being too kind, you'll just become a resented do-gooder. Ever heard of beneficiary's malice? If I donated to Yin Jiaming, he'd probably turn around and bite the hand that feeds him. Li Shui burst into giggles. I leaned closer to whisper in Li Shui's ear, gotta save my own skin first. Seriously, 2 years ago when my mom tried to donate 1 million directly to Yin Jiaming's family, he turned it down too, thought we were insulting his dignity. It was presumptuous of me to impose my help without considering whether he actually needed it. This young lady has decided to tighten the purse strings and quit playing Mother Teresa. With that, I buried myself in the test papers again. Li Shui had no choice but to sip her boba tea while propping her chin in thought for a long while. During the second homeroom period, the head teacher announced the donation total for Yin Jiaming, 10 yen, for 98, clearing his throat. He gave me a pointed look and said sarcastically, most classmates have contributed to help Yin Jiaming through his difficulties. You're all kind-hearted kids, though some who should have donated didn't. Meanwhile, an icy glare shot toward me from the front row seat by the left wall. Oh, look, it's our class charity case, Yin Jiaming, 5. I stared straight at Yin Jiaming, waiting for him to spout nonsense, but he just turned away silently. I'll let it go, ignoring those passive-aggressive cowards who wouldn't speak directly. I packed my bag and left right as the dismissal bell rang. After getting home, I had a well-balanced dinner. Did some reading, then showered and turned in for the night. I need to recharge both physically and mentally, getting proper rest and sleep for tomorrow's final exam. Only with proper rest can I think clearly and dominate the exam hall once again. Long time no see, my top-performing self. A week later, the final exam results were out. I skyrocketed from the bottom ranks to top 30 in grade and top 5 in class. Yin Jiaming, who had consistently ranked in the top 10 for 2 years, plummeted to 100th place in the grade. The whole class was buzzing with gossip. No way, when Yujia, who's always been at the bottom, actually made it to the top 30. Is this a dream? That's insane. She improved by a whopping 321 points. She must have cheated, right? Wasn't Wen Yujia the city's top scorer in the middle school entrance exam? Maybe she's just readjusted to high school exams now. Rumors have been swirling that she bought her way to the top of the city's middle school exams. Money talks. After all, she used to have Yin Jiaming tutor her regularly. Wait, why did Yin's grades drop so drastically? Could he and Wen Yujia have swapped test papers? His family's been desperate for cash lately. I strongly demand a review of Wen Yujia's final exam results, or have her retake the test alone to prove herself. My deskmate Li Shui defended me. Yujia would never cheat. For the past 2 months, I've seen her grind through at least 2 practice tests daily. Our homeroom teacher, already displeased that I hadn't donated to Yin Jiaming's fundraiser, summoned me to the office after hearing these speculations and confronted me about possible cheating. I said no. He retorted, how can you prove you didn't cheat? Why did you score so much higher than Yin Jiaming, who's been tutoring you all along? Did you refuse to donate just to secretly pay him for answers and grades? Rich girls like you always have to show off. I burst out laughing. Why should I prove myself? The burden of proof lies with the accuser. As an educator with years of experience, I always believed you were a responsible teacher. Now I see your responsibility is selective, playing favorites with male students while resenting the wealthy. How pathetic. My parents started with a street stall over a decade ago. Through national policies, relentless effort, and commitment to food quality and service, they've built what we have today. Perhaps you should quit teaching and try starting your own street stall business. You must admit that some affluent individuals, having secured financial stability, can focus their time and energy on self-improvement and knowledge acquisition rather than daily survival. Let's be real, wealthy people accumulate fortunes either through generations of hard work or by outsmarting the system. That takes serious brains and knowledge, so don't assume rich folks are just lucky idiots. The wealthy create massive economic value, boost GDP, pay substantial taxes that fund national development. Hell, even you benefited from my family's education fund donation to our school 2 years ago. Didn't you get a nice subsidy from that? Stop biting the hand that feeds you. If you're genuinely confused, maybe crack open some economics books instead of complaining. The homeroom teacher was left speechless, just standing there awkwardly. When you how utterly disrespectful. You've no concept of honoring teachers or respecting elders. I laughed even louder, realizing further conversation was pointless. I turned to leave the office, then paused to add, if you want respect, start by respecting others. Stop waving your petty authority around like some imperial decree, showing off while smearing others. 6. The moment I returned to the classroom, Jiaming came to my desk and asked if we could step outside to talk. It was the first time he'd initiated conversation since my rebirth, yet his face still wore that same contemptuous look. The memory of him injecting venom into my body in our past life sent an involuntary shiver down my spine. I suppressed the overwhelming tide of hatred. Rolled her eyes at him, spit it out if you've got something to say. After a long pause, he spewed this nonsense. What did you promise my mom? She wants to see you at the hospital. Listen carefully, my mom wanting to see you doesn't mean I accept you. There's no future between us, so stop playing hard to get. What a load of bullshit he's spewing. I stood up and slapped him right across the face. Can't you stop slandering people like a grown man? Playing hard to get. I just stopped paying your ridiculous tutoring fees because I can outscore you on my own. Why should I waste money on your ugly mug? We're impossible. Did I ever pursue you, confess my feelings, send you love letters, force you into a relationship? None of that happened, right? I just hired you as a tutor for a while. Why are you being so delusional? And let's get one thing straight, you're the one begging for my help here, so act like it. Unless you want to squander every ounce of goodwill your parents worked so hard to earn. Slapped and insulted, Jiaming's face flushed crimson. He stared at me in disbelief before roaring back furiously, suit yourself, message delivered. I'm off to make an honest living. I shouted at his retreating figure, you hypocritical piece of trash, go to hell. Li Shui, who was sipping her bubble tea nearby, suddenly stopped and grabbed my hand. Don't be mad, Yujia, she said soothingly. Getting angry isn't good for your breast health. Not cursing out that bastard would be worse for my mammary glands, but I knew Li Shui meant well, so I nodded and suggested treating her to hot pot to celebrate our improved exam results. Li Shui jumped from top 50 to top 30 in our grade this time, and made it into the top 10 in our class. Li Shui immediately set down her bubble tea, swiftly packed her bag, and pulled me out of the classroom, amidst the hushed gossip of onlooking classmates. Li Shui and I strutted out of school without a care. At the aromatic hot pot restaurant, we devoured long-missed delicacies, fatty beef, tripe, lotus root slices, crown daisy, bamboo shoots, potatoes, and beef balls, before Li Shui miraculously produced 2 giant bubble teas, handing me one. Yujia, let's celebrate. I gleefully accepted it and raised a toast first. Cheers to both of us making the top 30 in our grade. Here's to cracking the top 3 in next year's college entrance exams. Li Shui chimed in, celebrating my junk food detox. Though I'll never give up my life-saving bubble tea, I continued, here's to ditching the do-gooder act and staying true to myself. Our milk teacups clinked as Li Shui and I cheered in unison. May we all have a bright future. 7. 1 week later, when my mother took me for a checkup at the municipal hospital, we ran into Jiaming picking up his mother upon discharge. It wasn't that she'd recovered, her condition had actually worsened. His mother suffered central nervous system damage from grief, leading to acute cerebral hemorrhage that progressed into chronic hemiplegia. Continued hospitalization would require hiring caregivers for daily assistance and rehabilitation therapy. Last time, besides school donations, he raised funds through a crowdfunding platform, but the money was depleted within 2 weeks after settling previous debts. Now his family has reached absolute financial ruin, the second time. His family launched another crowdfunding campaign, but very few people donated. Sometimes, people's kindness can be completely worn out. Mrs. Een trembled as she greeted my mother and me, then thanked us. She said she knew our family had donated to them before and had been very kind to Een Jemming. The last time she wanted me to visit the hospital was to express her gratitude in person. My heart softened, baffled how such a reasonable mother could raise that self-righteous bastard Een Jemming. But my son Jemming didn't want to keep begging for donations to treat my illness. I understand, men have their pride. I'll go home in my wheelchair, keep up with my exercises, and when he gets back from school or work, he can help me with some rehab. I'm sure I'll gradually get better. Hearing this, my mother and I exchanged glances. Well, we'll just have to respect their decision and wish them the best. Een Jemming, standing nearby, forcefully pushed my mother and me aside with his right hand covered in band-aids, pushing Mother Een through the biting wind to catch the bus. Is this guy out of his mind, trying to take out your Yao Ji restaurant frustrations on me? If anyone should be venting anger here, it's me. I just put him in his place. Haven't even started tormenting him yet. I immediately called the restaurant manager. Listening to the intel my family gathered at Yao's restaurant, these days, what honest food business doesn't have an undercover watchdog? Een Jemming has been through the ringer at Yao's restaurant lately. First, his part-time wages of 3,500 yuan were withheld because he accidentally broke some plates. Those practically worthless plates required triple compensation at Yao's, a restaurant notorious for nickel-and-diming its staff. Een wasn't even allowed to replace them with similar plates. The general manager stated that Yao's tableware is exclusively customized and cannot be replaced with inferior substitutes. The proud Een Jemming couldn't tolerate such treatment, so he tried to convince Lu Junjun to return to their previous restaurant for part-time work, but Lu Junjun declined. Lu felt constantly washing dishes, wiping tables, and serving meals was exhausting. It made no difference which restaurant she worked at. For secure document anti-piracy, choose Xiaohu Bot. Reliable bookfinding AI assistant, no scams guaranteed. When Yaoji Restaurant's pre-made meal secret got exposed, the boss installed a glass display at the entrance. It supposedly shows their signature pepper pork cooking process, but actually just requires staff to perform vegetable chopping, preferably by an attractive female employee. Coincidentally, Lu Junjun happened to be quite good-looking. She was tired of being ordered around in the kitchen anyway. Chopping peppers behind glass seemed like cushy work. No way she'd return to the old restaurant with Een Jemming, not after burning bridges with the manager and staff. Why go back just to become their laughingstock? Unable to swallow the humiliation, Een Jemming had no choice but to return alone to his former restaurant to seek employment. But after applying to all 7 or 8 eateries where he'd worked part-time after middle school, every single one turned him down. This time, the managers didn't side over staffing. They admitted the Wen family restaurants had put out the word. Een wasn't to earn a single cent from any Wen-affiliated business, not even through hard labor. Aren't you Wang's catering? Een demanded, eyes flashing. What's this got to do with the Wens? My apologies, but the Wen family holds majority shares in our Wang's establishment, the manager replied. Een Jemming had no choice but to return to Yao's restaurant. He kept swallowing his pride, washing dishes with resentment, carrying plates with excessive caution, non-stop cleaning tables, and scrambling for night shifts just to earn an extra 20 yuan in overtime pay. Yao's restaurant never turned away such workers. To them, employees, whether full-time or part-time, were just cheap labor. Work if you want, leave if you don't. The entire downtown's dining scene is practically dominated by 2 major players, my family's Wenjia Catering and Yaoji Catering. Even the mightiest hero can be brought low by lack of money. Een Jemming finally realized how tough making a living truly was. What else could he do? He had to pour more hours into side gigs. Even after his mom's hospital discharge, daily expenses kept piling up. Though the community offered regular assistance, his stubborn pride made him accept help inconsistently. He needed to prove to childhood friend Lu Junjun that his mother could rely on her now, just as Lu could in the future. Unfortunately, Lu Junjun could only respond with a helpless expression while chopping peppers behind the glass display case. 8 months passed like this, and we had entered the final sprint phase of the college entrance exams. 8. My grades had consistently remained in the top 3 of my class and top 10 in my grade level. Meanwhile, Een Jemming had become the bottom-ranked student in both our class and the entire grade. The homeroom teacher refused to believe his star student could become the class underachiever. In his eyes, high school was when male students' academic abilities shone brightest. He'd always cite how the top Gaokao scorers from the past 2 years were both boys, but whether the top scorers male or female, they all have to put in the hours, studying, reviewing, practicing, memorizing, and testing, right? Oh, over these 8 months, Yin Jiaming has skipped nearly 200 classes. With over 100 mock exams skipped and so little time and effort invested in studying, is it any surprise he ranked at the bottom? That's why the homeroom teacher kept lamenting Yin Jiaming's situation, even suggesting he repeat a grade. Yin refused calmly, explaining how his mother had fallen during home rehabilitation last month. By the time he returned from night shift, she'd passed away. Now he could finally focus on himself and his studies. The teacher's heart ached seeing Yin's sunken eyes and acne-ridden face, no longer the handsome boy he once was. She urged him to study hard, hoping he could catch up and give his all for the college entrance exams. Yin Jiaming nodded with a vicious glare. His expression screamed he could skin someone alive without breaking a sweat. But when the college entrance exam results came out, reality hit him and his homeroom teacher hard. My Gaokao score this time was 300 points higher than Yin Jiaming's. Meanwhile, just like we'd toasted over hot pot, Li Shui and I both ranked top 3 in our grade. She became the city's top scorer in Chinese while I aced math, and coincidentally, the overall municipal champion happened to be another girl. Both Li Shui and I submitted our applications on time, enrolling in different top-tier universities nationwide. Yin Jiaming's scores, however, only qualified him for a local vocational college. Great. Now he could not only wash dishes with his childhood sweetheart Lu Junjun at the same restaurant, but also attend vocational college together, graduating to sell roasted sweet potatoes on the street if she was willing. Clearly, Lu Junjun wasn't interested. After receiving her vocational school acceptance letter, she chose to work in Hong Kong instead. She claimed education was pointless for girls, better to capitalize on youth as a fresh-faced model. Then enroll in socialite training after making money. Maybe she'd even land a D-list celebrity husband. Yin Jiaming, she'd already written him off completely. In their past life, Yin Jiaming spent the hefty tutoring fees my family paid him on luxury gifts for her, yet she rejected him for lacking time to accompany her, only to turn around and date the school bully instead. This lifetime, with all the time in the world to wash dishes and share corncobs with her at the diner. She suddenly realized love alone couldn't fill an empty stomach. She decided Yin couldn't provide for her financially, refusing to endure another lifetime of predictable hardship, wanting it all yet getting nothing. Neither version of Yin Jiaming across lifetimes could ever satisfy her demands, so she mocked Yin Jiaming as a stupid, ugly fool in his current state. Soon, this fool was arrested by the police. Yin Jiaming was arrested after neighbors reported him for murdering his own mother. 3 months prior, Yin Jiaming returned home, first feeding his bedridden mother millet porridge before mercilessly smothering her with a pillow as she rested. Mrs. Yin struggled with all her might, begging for mercy, but Yin Jiaming coldly ignored her pleas, only releasing the pillow when her breathing stopped. An hour later, he staged the scene. He faked his mother's death as a fall from her wheelchair, scattering kanji around the area. He rushed out for his night shift. And upon returning home the next morning, he found his mother's body already stiff. Before calling emergency services, when paramedics arrived, they confirmed his mother's death and explained that handling deceased cases fell outside their jurisdiction. Yin Jiaming needed to contact funeral services instead. This way, Yin Jiaming avoided a post-mortem examination for his mother, given their extreme poverty and his mother's long-term paralysis confining her to a wheelchair. A fatal fall wouldn't have been surprising, but I remember it all. Ever since my rebirth, I've never forgotten my vengeance. To make Yin Jiaming suffer, I merely forced him to face his dire reality, and his vicious nature gradually surfaced. Killing his own mother was his choice. I simply had him watched, became his neighbor, and documented his crime on video. Now he can't even get into that vocational college he always looked down on, in his previous life. He claimed to despise wealthy families like ours, yet had no qualms about enjoying the privileges and money we provided. This allowed him to devote himself entirely to studying and self-improvement after losing his father, and to afford the best medical treatment for his mother with our family's money. Then he got into a top-tier university, yet he still resented me for ruining his love life. How ironic. He could have refused all the privileges my family offered, so why didn't he, after killing me? He scoured every prestigious campus until he found a girl who resembled Lu Junjun. He pursued her as a stand-in, desperate to fulfill his obsessive, unrequited love. Perhaps fate has a soft spot for those who are wild and shameless. Even after my death, Yin Jiaming continued to amass wealth and love without end, yet it's so unfair to good people, always exploited and used, whether they're poor or rich, healthy or ill. So remember, folks, don't be too kind-hearted in this world. Nice guys finish last, may be an old saying, but it's the hard truth. In this second life, I refuse to play the saint, starting with myself. What comes next will be an even more spectacular revenge operation, clearing blocked channels with style. After all, we're just getting started with phase 2, making Yin Jiaming's life a living hell. The Golden September. 10. While Li Shui and I were attending classes, joining clubs, and competing in debates at Beijing universities, Yin Jiaming was detained in our city's prison and later stood public trial. During the first trial, he suddenly retracted his initial guilty plea after refusing to accept the life sentence verdict. With tears streaming down his face, he denied all charges, first claiming the neighbor's video evidence was doctored to frame him. He then claimed he had been coerced into a false confession at the police station. Later, he gave inconsistent statements with shifting details in an attempt to exonerate himself. For instance, he mentioned a movie where a long-term caregiver suffocated their terminally ill family member with a pillow before committing suicide. He admitted considering the same act but ultimately couldn't bring himself to do it. He skipped classes day and night to work multiple jobs just to give his mother a better life. How could he possibly kill his own mother, with such a bright future ahead? Why would he throw it all away? He may admit he's not exceptional, but he's undoubtedly kind-hearted. He wouldn't even dare to kill a chicken. When he saw his mother confirmed dead, he actually felt a sense of relief too. It had all been so exhausting. He added that Mrs. Yin must have felt the same relief. Patients get worn out too, and now she could join his father. For the 3 elements of conviction, we currently only have witness testimony and physical evidence. And his mother's body had long been cremated. An autopsy cannot be performed either. The case cannot be filed without Yin Jiaming's confession. The investigation had to be suspended. By this point, the incident had already sparked heated discussions online. This is textbook malignant narcissism, antisocial, histrionic, full-blown NPD, spitting image of that notorious Lao Moji case. Even the excuses are identical. As Yin Jiaming's high school classmate, it's heartbreaking. He was truly exceptional back then, top-tier looks and brains, but life dealt him a cruel hand, crushing poverty, his father's death, his mother's illness. It all derailed him. Poverty doesn't justify murder. By that logic, half the world's killers should walk free. Let's not forget, Yin and his mom received substantial aid after his dad died. He chose this path. The real victim here is his murdered mother. The second-hand embarrassment is unreal, pulling a courtroom U-turn. If the appeal upholds the verdict, prosecutors will nail him for obstruction. Unless this is a wrongful conviction, well, grab your popcorn. For the sake of giving netizens a good show, and frankly for my own peace of mind, I can't stand Yin Jiaming using lies to weasel out of responsibility. I'll make his life a living hell. So I made my move. I bribed someone to give money to the family of Brother Wang, a lifer who killed under duress, so he'd take care of Yin Jiaming inside. There's an unspoken rule among inmates: everyone asks how you ended up inside. Rapists, child abusers, those who harmed family members, and snitches usually get rough treatment from fellow inmates, but someone's gotta start it. Yin Jiaming's matricide conviction already made him unpopular with the prison population. He actually retracted his confession during the trial, trying to weasel out of the charges. Upon hearing the news, Brother Wang, who'd been serving a life sentence with no evidence to overturn his conviction, vented his pent-up rage on Yin Jiaming with brutal force, and so, during yard time, Yin Jiaming found himself inexplicably buried alive. While sleeping, Yin Jiaming was suddenly beaten black and blue, then had his mouth forcibly filled with urine. During meals, his food would get snatched by fellow inmates within minutes. Each time he refilled his bowl, it'd be stolen again, leaving him perpetually hungry. At first, he'd report these incidents to the guards, but each complaint only earned him worse beatings. This vicious cycle repeated endlessly, day after day. He endured 68 days of relentless torment before the second trial commenced. During the appeal hearing, his psychological defenses collapsed. He finally confessed to murdering his biological mother in gruesome detail, pleading only for a prison transfer should he receive a life sentence. The presiding judge sternly responded that given his prior retractions demonstrating poor remorse, coupled with the substantial public resources expended on his case, the appellate verdict might not deliver a life sentence. Upon hearing this, Yin Jiaming collapsed to the floor in terror, passed out. In November, Beijing had its first heavy snowfall. 11. Li Shui and I originally planned to book tickets for the Forbidden City to take photos and check in, but unfortunately, there were too many people making reservations, and by our turn, the tickets were already sold out, so we ended up enjoying Peking duck at a restaurant across from the Forbidden City while watching the snowfall. Halfway through our duck and milk tea, we heard the final verdict on Yin Jiaming's case. Yin Jiaming received a death sentence with a 2-year reprieve. Before I could react, Li Shui cut in angrily. Isn't a suspended death sentence just a free pass to live? Yin Jiaming murdered his own mother. It's the same as that Wu guy's case. What's next? Life imprisonment followed by sentence reductions. Absolutely unbelievable. Netizens are outraged. Seriously, rumor has it Yin got leniency because his father was a firefighting hero, but his mother was his dad's lawful wife. This monster killed his own family. How is this acceptable? For society's safety, I beg you. If Yin isn't executed immediately, copycat crimes will follow. Countless imitators will endanger ordinary citizens. At this rate, who dare have kids? Raising children won't even secure your old age, let alone protect you from being murdered. Soon we'll probably see this question on Jihu. / What does it feel like to be killed by your own child? / Top comment. Ask me again after I get murdered. Right now I'm just focused on survival and self-defense. Second comment. Hard agree. Plus 10,086. I finished my milk tea and said to Li Shui with a smile. Don't worry, he'll die. Even the heavens can't stand his wickedness. Xiaohu bot prevents document forgery. For bookfinding bots, choose Xiaohu. Reliable heavy checkmark and scam-free, because I'll make sure of it myself. Li Shui prayed. Bless him, bless him. Within half a year, Yin Jiaming assaulted a fellow inmate, committing intentional battery, under China's suspended death penalty system. This new crime triggered immediate execution. Why did Yin Jiaming deliberately assault his cellmate? Maybe he'd had enough of the provocation and torment, or maybe he just felt like killing someone, just like how he brazenly murdered his own mother, just like how he killed me in our past life, whether in this life or the last. He's always been rotten to the core. It's just that, in this lifetime, he deserved to die. He owed repayment for all the sins he committed. During my last hot pot gathering with Li Shui this year, we heard the news that Yin Jiaming had been executed. Rumor has it he didn't die well. He rejected lethal injection and opted for execution by firing squad. During the execution, he attempted to flee and was riddled with bullet holes. Also heard a juicy piece of gossip. 1 week before his execution was finalized, Yin Jiaming requested a visit from Lu Junjun, offering to transfer his family's old apartment to her, whether she chose to live there or sell it. He hoped to provide some material compensation, his way of making amends for failing to give her the life she deserved 2 years prior. What a drama queen, even on death's door. Still playing the love-struck fool, utterly ridiculous, but Lu Junjun refused visitation rights, even privately cursing Yin Jiaming as a jinx, because Lu Junjun had already cemented her place in socialite training camp, ready to bag a male celebrity any moment. Why would she give a damn about a murderer's house? We exchanged knowing smiles and raised our bubble tea in celebration. Then came the new toast. Li Shui prayed devoutly. Thank you to myself for surviving another year safely and diligently. Thank you for living in a society where justice prevails, laws are established, enforced, and strictly upheld. And an early thank you for next year. It will surely be a year of national prosperity, peace, and bountiful harvests for our country. I also offered my blessings. Soon after, he earned 10 million. Unfinished. Thank you for the coming year, granting my parents health and safety, allowing them to retire early and enjoy their golden years traveling. I'm also grateful to the system for this second chance at life. I hope next year I can become a showcase example of its success. After all, I've flawlessly completed my post-rebirth mission. System Shatao seemed to hear my blessings, sending me this year-end report titled Post-Rebirth Vengeance Breast Health Unclogging Annual Review on New Year's Eve. Dear Reborn 1, Wenyujia, greetings. 12. This year, you protected yourself and your breast health 789 times, walking on the right side of roads, not using phones at crosswalks, seeking prompt treatment for winter rashes with BC supplements, and resting during fevers with 4 drips. Most commendably, you evaded murderer Yin Moming's plot through foresight and distance. Denying him any opportunity to harm you, you rejected 457 instances of emotional blackmail, ignoring your high school teacher's guilt-tripping donation demands, as firmly as refusing EAN last year, filming and reporting entitled parents when their kids cut queues, and refusing free meal demands from college classmates at your family restaurant. Outstanding work, keep it up. This year, your longest-standing commitment, telling people off. Before, your insults might have been petty, but this year every person you cursed absolutely deserved it. Remember December 20th, that special day when the person who ruined your past life finally got their comeuppance. You celebrated with 2 hot pot feasts, gave thanks to yourself and the universe, then cried yourself to sleep at midnight. I know those tears were for every grueling day of your rebirth revenge. I know you feared this might all be a dream. I know you worried moaming might harm your parents and friends because of you. When justice was finally served that night, you sobbed with joy and disbelief. From now on, remember to thank yourself daily. You're incredible. You fought free from that toxic parasite, just like you said. You saved your life and kept your sanity intact. You're truly remarkable. Unofficial stats show your college prep marathon, 307 extra exam papers, 99 recitations of the obscure Chusher Biao, 66 sleepless nights, under desk-mate Li Shui's influence, 33 bubble teas, 88 hot pot meals, 16 barbecue outings, 100 sausage and pork cold noodles. You swore off junk food 123 times. Your longest streak lasted 1 pathetic week. This year, through your actions, you've learned how to practice kindness while guarding against becoming a naive do-gooder, someone who might end up mocked, exploited, or hurt. Kindness means protecting and helping the vulnerable, rescuing stray animals, assisting the elderly or disabled, donating to girls in impoverished regions, or reasonably supporting those around you. But if your capacity is limited, don't blame yourself. Simply avoiding harm to others is its own form of kindness, because beyond external moral pressure, people often impose it on themselves too. For secure document protection, choose Xiao Hu Bot, your reliable bookfinding assistant. Stable service, zero hassle, shackled by outdated beliefs, disciplined by unreasonable demands, and constrained by vanity. One must first learn to forgive oneself, otherwise. In the pursuit of kindness, excess leads to savior complex, meddling in others' karma, disrupting your own energy. At best, you demean yourself. At worst, you court destruction. The end. Your 2023 keyword is unhinged. Keep that passion burning in the days ahead. Story 2. Fu Shijue was a poor student sponsored by my family. After achieving success and fame, the first thing he did was to publicly disrupt my wedding on the day of my marriage. I hated him for his ingratitude and didn't allow him to set foot in the bedroom even half a step after we got married. It was not until he jumped off an 18-story building to save me that I caught a glimpse of his almost crazy love for me. When I opened my eyes again, I went back to the day when he was bullied on campus. I picked up a wine bottle and smashed it on the head of the bully. The shards of glass mixed with blood stained the blue and white school uniform red. However, the young man suddenly grabbed my wrist, his eyes bloodshot. "Miss, have you had enough of acting? Weren't you the one who got these people to block me?" 1. When Fu Shijue was surrounded by those hooligans on the rooftop, I was standing in the shadow of the Chinese parasol tree under the teaching building. The wet and cold wind on the cloudy day blew his blue and white school uniform fluttering. Half of his body was leaning outside the railing, and the leader, a guy with yellow hair, still persistently grabbed his hair and pressed him outward. This scene overlapped with that bloody night in my previous life. "Mr. Fu is really an infatuated person. Exchange yourself for Miss Chiao. Okay, then jump down from the 18th floor now." The kidnapper's sinister laughter mixed with the sound of electricity came. After being married for 3 years, he still called me Miss Chiao, because I hated him for forcing me to marry him and never admitted that I was his wife. Fu Shijue's calm voice came from the phone. He said, "Shushya, don't be afraid." The next second, I saw a figure falling rapidly outside the window. Without the slightest hesitation, the fear swept over me like a storm, pulling me out of the memories of my previous life. My pupils trembled violently, and I ran towards the rooftop. "Let him go." I held an empty wine bottle and threw it directly. The leader, the guy with yellow hair, let out a howl, covering his forehead, and fell to the ground. "Whoever dares to touch him today, I'll make sure their blood splatters." Everyone was intimidated by my desperate posture. Fu Shijue leaned against the wall and slowly slid down to sit on the ground. The blue and white school uniform was stained with dark red patches. He stared at me intently, his eyelashes quivering. "Where are you hurt?" I stretched out my trembling hand to touch his bruised cheekbone, but he turned his head to avoid it. Haven't you had enough of acting? He raised his hand and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth with the back of his hand, chuckling hoarsely. Weren't you the one who got these people to block me, miss? My hand holding the half-wine bottle began to tremble. I'm not acting. Fu Shijue braced himself against the ground and struggled to stand up. The young man's thin shoulder blades protruded with a sharp arc under the fabric. He staggered past me. Anyway, you come with me to the hospital first. I turned my hand and clasped his cold fingers, my eyes red. His gaze fell on our hands interlocked, his Adam's apple rolled, and in the end, he couldn't bear to break free. Xiao Xixia. The end of Fu Shijue's voice trembled brokenly, like a desperate trapped beast whimpering as it licked its wounds. The wind on the rooftop blew up his messy forehead hair. He closed his eyes as if struggling. This time, how are you going to play with me again? I'm not, I said hastily. I think there must be a misunderstanding between us. I never thought of acting in front of you, let alone hurting you. Will you come to the hospital with me obediently? Okay. During the tugging, the school uniform jacket slipped off. The scratches on his wrist suddenly caught my eye. With old and new ones overlapping to form an ugly web, I instinctively let go of my hand, afraid of pulling him and hurting him. In my previous life, I accidentally learned from the doctor after marriage that he suffered from severe depression. But I didn't know that he had already started self-harming from such an early time. No wonder he always liked to wear long sleeves to cover himself up tightly. For a moment, I felt it difficult to even breathe. Can't keep up the act now. He immediately hid his hand behind his back and curled his lips self-deprecatingly. You can just say if you think it's dirty. There's no need to chagrin yourself like this. No, it's not like that. I didn't. Xixia. Why are you here? A clear male voice interjected. Gu Wenyan appeared at the door out of breath, interrupting my explanation. I've already called the police. Get out of here now. Those hooligans immediately scattered in all directions like birds and beasts. Master Gu, we were wrong. We'll leave right away. I suddenly froze. The kidnapper's words ordered by Mr. Gu in my previous life suddenly rang in my ears, perfectly overlapping with the voice at this moment. Gu Wenyan and I grew up together. I never thought he would harm me, but at this moment, I wasn't sure anymore. Gu Wenyan stepped forward and put his arm around my shoulder. Did they hurt you, Xixia? I've told you many times to stay away from him. This stray dog raised in the slums is always surrounded by all sorts of shady people. He'll only drag you down. Fu Shijue stared at Gu Wenyan's hand resting on my shoulder and twitched the corner of his mouth. It was bitter and broken. Why did you come to the rooftop? I remember that your class is having a math class at this time. I took a step back and interrupted him. Then I firmly held Fu Shijue's hand and stood side by side with him. Fu Shijue's body stiffened, and a trace of astonishment flashed in his eyes. Gu Wenyan's hand froze in midair. The teacher asked me to go to the print room to pick up some materials. I just happened to pass by and heard the commotion. He was stunned for a few seconds, and then smiled helplessly. You always say I'm too protective of you. But every time, Gu Wenyan, I stared at the flickering light behind his glasses and raised my voice. He's very nice, and it's not your place to judge him. Don't let me hear you speak ill of Fu Shijue again in the future, and now, please apologize to him. A startled sparrow flapped its wings and flew across the rooftop, casting a fleeting shadow at his feet. Xixia, what do you mean? He suddenly took a step forward and tried to pull me. Fu Shijue stepped in front of me one step ahead. I said, apologize to him. I looked into Gu Wenyan's eyes and enunciated each word. Gu Wenyan's face twisted for a moment, and then he quickly put on a worried expression. Xixia, I only said those things because I was too worried about you. It was really inappropriate for me to say that without any evidence. I frowned and said coldly, don't make excuses. You were in the wrong. Gu Wenyan's smile froze. Yeah, Xixia is right. He turned to Fu Shijue. Classmate Fu Shijue, I'm sorry. Fu Shijue remained silent and didn't reply. Let's go. I grabbed Fu Shijue's uninjured right hand. My intuition told me that there must be a reason why Fu Shijue rejected Gu Wenyan so much. If you don't want to pay attention to him, then don't. You have the right not to forgive him. His fingertips trembled, and the thin calluses rubbed against my palm. At the corner of the deserted corridor, he suddenly pulled his hand away. I turned around and saw his pale face. Have you had enough of acting? Fu Shijue lowered his eyes and had no expression on his face. After a moment of silence, he spoke again, but his voice was extremely hoarse. It was as if he was suppressing some extremely conflicting emotions. If you've had enough of acting, go home early. The weather forecast says it's going to rain tonight. 3. In fact, in my previous life, due to the gap in our statuses, Fu Shijue and I didn't have much interaction. He had many labels, the top scorer in the college entrance examination, a genius in science, and the youngest richest man in City A, but my biggest impression of him was that he was taciturn. After marriage, I hated him for his ingratitude and was extremely mean to him, not allowing him to get anywhere near me. The communication between us was even rarer. It was not until after his death that I found a diary in his study. Every word in it was about me, about the pain of his unrequited love. Only then did I understand why he was so determined to jump off the 18th floor. But since he loved me so much, why did he always doubt my kindness? He was even afraid of my closeness. This time around, I must find out the truth. And I must ensure that he lives a safe and happy life. Fu Shijue's room was on the basement floor. I stood at his door holding a collection of math exercises and knocked. "Who is it?" he said hoarsely. "The midterm exam is next month, and I have some questions I don't know how to solve. Can I ask you for help?" "As far as I know, the tutors your father hired for you are all Olympic math gold medal coaches." Fu Shijue opened the door, and the look in his eyes was difficult to discern. I deliberately leaned closer, looked up, and smiled at him. "But I just want you to teach me, Mr. Fu. Please do me a favor." Fu Shijue shifted his gaze a little uneasily, and the tips of his ears quietly turned red. "Come in." Just as he wrote in his diary before, Fu Shijue could never refuse Qiao Zhixia. It was as if he suddenly thought of something, turned around, and walked quickly, clearing all the items on the desk to one side. In a hurry, a pink hair tie fell to the ground. It was the one I lost during a PE class a long time ago. Fu Shijue immediately bent down to pick it up and put it in his pocket. I pretended not to see it, but the corner of my mouth involuntarily turned up. The desk lamp cast a warm yellow glow beside Fu Shijue. I deliberately moved my chair half an inch closer to him. The young man's washed-out white cuff rubbed against my forearm, and the fresh scent of Chinese prickly ash soap mixed with the smell of iodine fermented in the air. "Mr. Fu, I still don't understand Lagrange's theorem." I propped my chin and leaned closer to his hand holding the pen, and the ends of my hair gently swept across his delicate wrist bone. The pen blotted ink on the draft paper, and as Adam's apple rolled, "I'll derive it again." The hoarse ending of his sentence suddenly stopped in his throat. My knee accidentally touched his cold trouser leg. He suddenly stood up, and the wooden chair scraped against the ground with an ear-piercing sound. "I'll go get some water." I pulled his shirt hem and said softly, "Fu Shijue, do you like me?" He froze in place, and a look of panic welled up in his eyes. Humble and at a loss, my heart ached almost to the point of suffocation. "Fu Shijue." I stood up and looked directly into his eyes. "I don't know why you're afraid to get close to me, but I'll wait until you're willing to tell me. I'll also try my best to clear up the misunderstanding between us and won't let anyone bully you again." His pupils trembled, and he stared at me without moving. I stood on tiptoe and planted a kiss on his chin. "Let me tell you a secret. I had a very vivid dream. I dreamed that I married you." The relationship between Fu Shijue and me gradually grew closer during each tutoring session. He no longer rejected my approach, and even agreed to go to and from school with me at my request. Although every time Fu Shijue said that I should find a one-on-one tutor. Secretly he stayed up late every day to organize a notebook of my wrong questions for me. When the midterm exam results came out, I advanced more than 20 places. Under the red honor roll in the corridor, Fu Shijue was tying a scarf around my neck. His fair fingers twirled around the cashmere tassels, and his eyelashes cast a faint shadow under his eyes. "I told you before the exam that the last question would be about derivatives. If you had memorized that formula well, you could have gotten 5 more points." I pursed my lips. "I memorized too many formulas and got them mixed up." "Mr. Fu, you're so strict. You don't even praise me." A trace of a smile appeared in Fu Shijue's eyes. "Yeah, it's my fault. The young lady is the best." I hooked his little finger and shook it gently. "Don't call me young lady." He was slightly stunned and pursed his lips. "Then what should I call you?" I curved the corners of my mouth and acted coquettishly towards him. "Call me Xiaxia." Fu Shijue's eyelashes trembled, and he said carefully, "Xiaxia, Zhixia." Gu Wenyan came towards us holding a notebook. After that incident on the rooftop, I deliberately kept my distance from him. He came to my house to find me several times, and I asked the butler to turn him away from me. "Thanks to your notes, I almost got a full score in physics this time. I knew you were the best." Now that I did well in the exam, my dad agreed that we can go on a vacation to Australia during the holiday. By the way, where did you get this notebook of key points? The questions it predicted were so accurate. It's even more amazing than the final exam papers I bought at a high price. I was stunned and asked in confusion, when did I give you my notes? He opened the notebook in his hand. And it was a copy of the notebook of wrong questions that Fu Shijue had organized for me. The air suddenly froze. Fu Shijue slowly let go of my hand, and the light in his eyes gradually faded and turned into a dead silence. I hurriedly reached out to pull him. You misunderstood. I didn't use you to tutor me. He sidestepped to avoid me and said coldly, Miss, you don't have to explain to me. 5. Fu Shijue didn't go home. It was not until a friend told me that someone had run into Fu Shijue in a club. I enlarged the picture in the chat window. In the photo, Fu Shijue was sitting in the middle of a private room surrounded by a group of people. Under his wet eyelashes were his desolate eyes. 2 buttons of his shirt collar were undone, and his pale collarbone glowed with a cold glaze-like light under the blurred lights. He was as decadent as a gorgeous but dying red spider lily. Jixia, I'll go find him for you. Gu Wenyan grabbed my wrist. And the light in his eyes behind the glasses was gentle and full of concern. That kind of place is full of all sorts of people. He's willing to degenerate and go to accompany people to drink. You don't have to risk your safety for him. Moreover, Fu is so proud. If you go there rashly, it will only embarrass him. I suddenly remembered that in my previous life, there were widespread rumors in school about Fu Shijue frequenting nightclubs. Gu Wenyan also used various seemingly legitimate reasons to prevent me from investigating by myself. At that time, I had no doubts about my childhood friend, and I even praised him for his thoughtfulness. Now that I think about it, I'm afraid he was the mastermind behind all of this. A sticky feeling like that of a snake crept up my spine inch by inch. I suddenly shook off his hand. Gu Wenyan's smile froze on his lips. What's wrong? I clenched my fists and maintained my composure. Before everything was settled, it was not a wise choice to alert the enemy. I'll go with you. After all, he is a student sponsored by my family. If something happens to him, it will also be bad for my family's reputation. Under my urging, the driver managed to shorten the 30-minute drive to 15 minutes. The moment I pushed open the door of the private room, a strong smell of alcohol mixed with laughter rushed towards me. Fu Shijue was being pressed into the corner of the sofa by several drunk middle-aged men. Someone was forcing a glass of amber-colored spirits towards his lips. The rim of the glass hit his lower lip, and blood beads immediately appeared. Get out. A huge wave of anger swept away my reason. I directly picked up the ice bucket and smashed it on the tea table. Ice cubes mixed with glass shards scattered all over the floor. The private room fell silent instantly. Fu Shijue raised his head. When he saw it was me, his pupils suddenly constricted, his fingers gripping the armrest of the sofa tightened, and his knuckles turned blue. Who the hell are you? The bald man in the seat released Fu Shijue's collar and sized me up with his eyes. You little brat. Are you looking for death? You want us to leave? Who the hell do you think you are? Gu Wenyan caught up and reached out to put his arm around my shoulder. These people are drunk. You don't know what they might do. Jixia. Calm down. I know you're kind, but some people are born. I shook off Gu Wenyan's hand and said coldly, take a good look at who I am. My name is Qiao Jixia. Even your fathers would only be worthy of speaking to me with their heads bowed. The expressions of everyone immediately changed as they looked at each other. The club manager rushed over, wearing a flattering smile. Miss Qiao, what happened to make you unhappy? If there's anything you're not satisfied with here, I'll deal with it immediately. My gaze fell on Fu Shijue's lowered eyes and brows, and I said, everyone, get out. The manager immediately signaled the security guards to come forward and drag the middle-aged men away. Let's go, hurry up. Gu Wenyan frowned. Jixia, I didn't look back. You go out too. What? I said, get out. Didn't you hear me? Then take care of yourself. The manager closed the door tactfully. Only Fu Shijue and I were left in the room. I stepped forward and grabbed Fu Shijue's cold wrist. Why are you here? But he shook me off as if burned. Again, he sneered for a moment and ran his fingertips over the blood at the corner of his mouth. What do you mean? Doesn't Gu Wenyan know exactly why I'm here? Fu Shijue's Adam's apple rolled. Every time you have a conflict with Gu Wenyan, you use me for amusement. Am I just part of your game? A chill ran through my body. Sure enough, in both the past life and this life, Gu Wenyan had been creating misunderstandings between Fu Shijue and me. As a result, Fu Shijue always thought that those tutoring sessions and moments of intimacy were just a scheme jointly set up by me and Gu Wenyan. No, it's not like that. Not like what? He suddenly leaned in, trapping me between the sofa and his chest. Weren't those people who bullied me sent by you? Wasn't it you who had someone stop my mother's medical expenses to force me to work in a nightclub? What are you pretending to be a savior for now? What's the new trick this time? Are you going to make me think you care about me again, just to kick me back into the mud in front of him? With each word he spoke, his grip on my wrist tightened, and a scarlet haze surged in his eyes. I trembled and cupped his face. Fu Shijue, I didn't know you went through all this. He let out a low laugh, his expression broken. As you wish. I'm like a stray dog in heat now. As the words fell, a tear landed on my collarbone. Satisfied, Miss Chiao. 6. The crystal chandelier swayed above our heads. Fu Shijue's breath was so hot that it seemed to burn through my skin. He propped one hand on the leather backrest of the sofa beside my ear, his knuckles so white that they seemed on the verge of breaking his own bones. I finally realized something was wrong with him. There's something wrong with this wine. I reached out to touch his burning forehead, but he turned his head to avoid it. He lifted his eyelids, and his was laced with the sweet smell of alcohol. Isn't this exactly what you want? I grabbed the remaining half-glass of wine on the table and drank it in one gulp. The cold liquid slid down my throat, and a strange heat gradually ignited in my body. Fu Shijue was stunned, then suddenly pressed down on my shoulders. Are you crazy? Since you knew there was something wrong with the wine, why did you drink it? Spit it out. Spit it out now. His fingertips trembled as he pinched my chin, his eyes filled with anxiety. Fu Shijue. I tugged on his tie and leaned in, tilting my face up. My nose almost touched his trembling eyelashes. I have never directly or indirectly done anything to hurt you. All of this was designed by Gu Wenyan. He took advantage of your inferiority complex and my trust in him to create an information gap, causing the misunderstandings between us. I've been secretly investigating Gu Wenyan since that day on the rooftop, but he's very cautious, and it will still take me some time to get conclusive evidence. To avoid being discovered by him, I didn't draw a clear line with him in public. This time, it was the butler who privately copied the notebook I left on the table and gave it to him. I've already fired the butler. The reason he said those ambiguous things was also to sow discord between us. I originally planned to stay by your side and gradually wait for you to be willing to take the initiative to tell me your concerns and thoughts. But now, I think I need to change this approach. You love me too much. You'd rather deceive yourself than ask me directly because you're afraid of getting the answer you think I'll admit. You also dare not confess your love because of the gap in our statuses. You think you can't give me the best. And as long as I'm happy, you're willing to watch me from the corner forever without getting any closer. Well, then I'll take the initiative. He swayed and braced himself against the wall, trying to create some distance. A struggle flashed in his eyes. Stop talking. It's still not too late to go to the hospital. Can you stand up? I'll call someone. I looked at him and answered irrelevantly. Kiss me. Fu Shijue's breathing suddenly became heavy. I repeated. Fu Shijue. I want you to kiss me. Xia. Do you know what you're saying? His voice trembled violently. I turned and sat on his lap, recklessly pulling at his shirt. I know exactly what I'm saying. Fu Shijue. I want you. I wrapped my arms around his neck and kissed his lips. Do you believe me now? Fu Shijue seemed to be frozen in place, completely frozen. His pupils trembled slightly, and he grabbed my wrist and pressed it against his chest. The intense pounding of his heart made my palm tingle. Like a trapped beast crashing against its cage, his tone was almost gritted. Xiao Xixia, I'm really going crazy. Then don't hold back. As the drug took effect, my throat went dry. I kissed him again. The next moment, everything spun. Fu Shijue carried me into the lounge. The door locked. I was pinned beneath him. Fu Shijue held the back of my neck and deepened the kiss, taking the initiative. The veins stood out on the back of his hand as he gripped my waist. He was too forceful, and every touch was filled with a self-destructive ferocity. I soon found it difficult to breathe and could only weakly pound on his chest, but he showed no sign of slowing down. In the overwhelming pleasure, I trembled and clung to his shoulders, crying out. Fu Shijue bit my lips fiercely and said in a trembling voice, Xia, if I find out you're lying to me, I really will kill you. But also, he said, Miss, don't lie to me, please. 7. The morning light filtered through the gaps in the curtains. Fu Shijue's fine forehead hair rubbed against my collarbone, his arm tightly wrapped around my waist, as if he would fall into the void if he let go even slightly. This was a posture of extreme insecurity. My heart ached, and I hugged him. Fu Shijue opened his eyes, looking a bit dazed. Xia. His voice was hoarse, carrying a cautious joy. Fu Shijue, I ran my fingertips over the tear mole at the corner of his eye and said softly, "Let me tell you a story." Amid the chirping of sparrows outside the window, I recounted my experiences from my previous life. When I mentioned him jumping off the building, the arm around my waist suddenly tightened. I thought he was feeling uneasy about his tragic ending. Shusha, he pressed his forehead against mine, but I didn't expect him to say, "I'm such a bastard, how could I leave you alone to bear the rest of your life?" It was as if an ice pick had pierced my heart. I suddenly looked up, and tears welled up uncontrollably. "Fu Shijue, are you stupid?" Fu Shijue gently kissed away the tears at the corners of my eyes, and there was a coldness in his eyes that I had never seen before. "This time, I won't let you leave me again." 8. After the college entrance examination, Fu Shijue and I successfully entered the finance department of University A. For some unknown reason, Gu Wenyan performed poorly and entered University B in another province. Over the years, my father's health had been deteriorating. On the day the admission notice arrived, my father suddenly fainted. Even the doctors couldn't identify the exact cause of his illness. This sudden situation occurred a full 3 years earlier than in my previous life. It seemed that something had changed somehow because of my rebirth. 7 hours after the red light in the emergency room came on, Gu Wenyan appeared in a hurry. He squatted down and took my hand. "I've already contacted an expert to come over. Uncle will be fine, don't worry too much. I'll try to stabilize the board of directors for now. If the news of Uncle's illness spreads, I'm afraid many people will have their eyes on you." Looking at the deep concern in his eyes, I was momentarily dazed. Gu Wenyan was the most unremarkable second son of the Gu family. The eldest son of the Gu family had been outstanding since childhood, skipping 3 grades in primary school and being admitted to a prestigious foreign university in his sophomore year of high school. He was the heir that Mr. Gu favored the most. The youngest son of the Gu family was born to Gu Wenyan's stepmother. He was extremely cute, and being young and good at acting cute, he could always make Grandpa Gu beam with joy, even though he was still in kindergarten. He had already received 5% of the shares of Gu Corporation. Compared to them, Gu Wenyan was too ordinary, so ordinary that even the servants at home treated him poorly. The children in the social circle, influenced by their elders from a young age, were snobbish and didn't want to be friends with Gu Wenyan. The first time I met Gu Wenyan was at a party. As the only daughter of the Chia family, there were far too many people who wanted to socialize with me. Tired of dealing with them, I hid on the terrace of the backyard to seek some peace. Gu Wenyan was there too, but he had been pushed into the pool and bullied, so he had to leave the party looking. Sadly, he didn't even have a private lounge, so I lent him my room to change and stood up for him. Since then, he often came to keep me company. Among all the false faces, I couldn't resist his sincere, sparkling eyes. Because of me, Gu Wenyan received more attention in the Gu family, and every time he got a chance to shine, he would immediately give me the rewards as if showing off a treasure. I thought we were best friends, but I never imagined that it had all been about exploitation from the very beginning. "What's wrong?" He waved his hand in front of my face and frowned. I lowered my eyes and took a deep breath. "Nothing, I'm just worried about the company. I'm afraid we can't keep my father's condition a secret for much longer." He was silent for a while, then said slowly, "Jixia, actually, if you're willing, marriage alliance is the fastest way to stabilize the situation. With the support of the Gu family, even if Uncle isn't by your side, no one will dare to act rashly." This time, I didn't pull my hand away. Instead, I said the lines that Fu Shijue and I had pre-arranged. Agreeing too quickly would arouse suspicion. What we needed to do was make him think he was the hunter. "You're right, the company needs someone to take charge before Dad wakes up." "Wenyan, my mind is in such a mess right now. I'll think about it. Can you give me some time?" After Gu Wenyan left, I dismissed his medical team and secretly sent my father abroad for examination overnight. In my previous life, my father's condition had worsened under the treatment at Gu's hospital. He was more unscrupulous than I had imagined. 9. Over the next 6 months, my father continued to fall into a coma from time to time as planned. Gu Wenyan and I announced our engagement and jointly managed the company's affairs. In the office, I rubbed my temples as I checked the last report. Gu Wenyan pushed the door open and came in. "Jixia, I brought you some late-night snacks." He opened the thermal box, and the steaming heat from the shrimp dumplings fogged up his glasses. "Every time you stayed up late to study when we were kids, we would go to Fuji to eat." "Thanks, just put it on the coffee table." I closed the risk assessment report of the merger and acquisition case and smiled at him. He leaned in. And his fingertips brushed against my earlobe as he tried to take off my earphones. Don't say thanks. By this time next year, we'll be married. After all these years, it's still me who stays by your side. I instinctively turned my head to avoid him, his hand froze in midair for a few seconds. Then he propped himself on the back of the chair. Jixia, I feel like you've changed a bit. Gu Wenyan looked at me, and there was a darkness in his eyes that I couldn't understand. I stood up and shook my coffee cup, the ice cubes clinking together. No, I haven't. You're just overthinking it. I'm just tired from working overtime, really. He continued to stare at me stubbornly, a strange glint flashed in his eyes. I felt flustered under his gaze. Of course, I'm going to the lounge to get some water. This coffee is too bitter. Before he could reply, I walked out quickly. As soon as my fingers touched the doorknob, I was pulled into the darkness. A familiar, clear scent surrounded me. Fu Shijue pressed me against the door. I covered my chest and let out a sigh of relief. What are you doing? You scared me. Fu Shijue looked down at me, his voice a bit cold. Did he come to see you again? I realized he was jealous. Didn't we agree to put on a show? We'll wait until he relaxes his guard and then strike. Gu Wenyan approached me to change his fate by marrying me, in my previous life. Fu Shijue discovered the plot and rushed back home overnight to force me to marry him at the wedding, ruining Gu Wenyan's plan. He also severely suppressed the Gu family, leaving Gu Wenyan with no chance of making a comeback. In the end, Gu Wenyan became angry and wanted to die together with Fu Shijue. Now that my father was seriously ill, he definitely wouldn't let go of this opportunity to infiltrate the Qiao family, so we decided to play along, allowing him to work at Qiao Corporation in the name of a marriage alliance and keeping him under our surveillance. Did he touch you just now? Fu Shijue took a few steps closer. My hair, I pretended to think, holding back a smile. Recently, Fu Shijue's possessiveness towards me has been growing stronger. To be more precise, he has finally stopped hiding his desire for me. It seems there's still the neck, and also, the unfinished words were swallowed up in a kiss. His slender fingers probed under the hem of my dress, and he turned his head to suck and bite on my earlobe. It's time to close the net. No, we're still missing a bit of the clues about money laundering and tax evasion. Suppressed gasps escaped from Fu Shijue's throat, and he increased the force, but I can't bear it anymore. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door, and Gu Wenyan's voice came through the door panel. Jixia, the late-night snack will get cold. I felt a bit flustered and whispered softly, Fu Shijue, let go. What if someone hears us? As if he didn't hear me, Fu Shijue gripped my waist and pushed in deeper. The wet sound of water was infinitely amplified in the darkness. I bit down hard on his shoulder, not daring to make a sound. Fu Shijue leaned close to my ear and casually spat out 3 words. Tell him to get lost. 10. The engagement banquet between Gu Wenyan and me was held as scheduled. The fragrance of rose aromatherapy wafted in the air. I stood in front of the mirror adjusting my pearl earrings. Gu Wenyan's footsteps sounded outside the door. Jixia, the stylist said your veil needs adjusting. He rapped on the door with his knuckles, his voice revealing an uncontrollable joy. But all the guests have arrived. Aren't you ready yet? My phone vibrated on the dressing table. Fu Shijue sent a message. His office is open. Have you found that account book? I typed quickly. No. Stall for 10 more minutes. Okay. I loosened the bow behind my waist, letting the silk slide down my back. The dress has snagged. Bring me the spare mermaid dress. Wait a moment. I'll change. Where did I put that dress? I'll go get it for you. Okay. I let out a breath, telling myself to stay calm. After a few minutes, Gu Wenyan pushed the door open and came in, holding the dress. Do you need my help? His fingers casually brushed against the back of my neck. I sidestepped to avoid him. No, I can put it on myself. Gu Wenyan's eyes darkened, and he said without any context, Jixia, you know what? I've been having some interesting dreams lately. Suddenly, a blinding flash of lightning passed by outside the French window. The sound of the rain pounding against the glass was very much like the howling wind when Fu Shijue fell from the building in my previous life. A sense of foreboding spread. I was startled, and my heart began to race uneasily. What did you dream about? Gu Wenyan suddenly wrapped his arms around my waist from behind, and his cold lips pressed against my earlobe. For example, you were kneeling on the ground, looking at me pitifully. His fingertips ran across my spine, as if measuring the curvature of my bones, and also, for example, Fu Shijue jumped off the building, his body covered in blood and flesh. I remember, he seemed to be wearing a black suit that day too. Gu Wenyan looked at the mirror and curled the corner of his mouth. Look, Does it look like the one I'm wearing? The blood in my whole body froze instantly. The dressing mirror reflected his twisted smile, a madness I had never seen before. A chill swept through my body, and I couldn't catch my breath. He, too, had been reborn. Gu Wenyan, since when did you start remembering the things from our last life? I controlled my trembling body and enunciated each word. He shrugged indifferently. Ever since you saved Fu Shijue in the bar, so I had to move up many of my plans. Suddenly, my throat tightened. His thumb, clad in a leather glove, pressed against my carotid artery. The force was as gentle as a lover's caress, but it made the hair all over my body stand on end. You still choose him in this second chance? In the face of my silence, he chuckled. You know what? In the last life, to what extent did Fu Shijue go for you? He already had severe depression. In order to provide for you earlier, he worked day and night abroad, and as a result, he got stomach cancer. On the day he came back to disrupt our wedding, he vomited a lot of blood backstage where you couldn't see, but he was afraid that you couldn't accept his departure, so he didn't even dare to tell you all this. He would rather you hated him than see you shed tears for him. What a touching love story. I froze. And tears fell down like pearls with a broken string. So this was the reason why he let me misunderstand him in the last life. So, do you have the heart to let him go through all that again? Do you think he will commit suicide for love if he knows something has happened to you? However, I still think it would be more satisfying to deal with him myself. He suddenly burst into laughter, and his eyes behind the glasses were bloodshot. What are you going to do? I looked at him warily. Gu Wenyan's face darkened little by little, and a sickly paranoia appeared in his eyes. Jixia, actually, I love you too. As long as you stay by my side obediently, I won't let anything happen to you. Be smart for your own sake. Gu Wenyan stuffed the phone into my palm. Call Fu Shijue and say you want to break up with him. He will definitely be anxious to come and ask you for an explanation. I tampered with the brake pads of the car in the underground garage. He will be greeted by a perfect car accident. I've already booked the plane tickets. After you make the call, we'll go abroad immediately to register our marriage and run away together. What if I don't? There's no what if. He gently smoothed my sideburns. Suddenly, the muzzle of Gu Wenyan's gun pressed against my lower back, and the chill of the metal penetrated through my thin gauze dress. You know, I've never been willing to hurt you. I stared at him. After a long while, I nodded. When the call connected, Fu Shijue's breathing was a bit rapid. Xia, what's wrong? Gu Wenyan's fingertips twined around my hanging hair, slowly tightening like a viper strangling its prey. Say it, say he's just a toy for you to kill time. Shijue. I interrupted him immediately, digging my nails deep into my palm. I'm tired. Gu Wenyan is right. A marriage between people of the same social status is the best destination. Without any warning, I changed the subject. Remember, don't drive that car. There's something wrong with it. Gu Wenyan's pupils suddenly constricted. In that split second when he was distracted, I leaned back suddenly, and the back of my head hit his Adam's apple heavily. He let out a muffled groan, and I turned around and grabbed his wrist holding the gun and bit down hard. Gu Wenyan let out a shrill scream and released his hand. The bullet grazed past my ear and shattered the crystal chandelier on the ceiling. A huge crashing sound rang out. I took the opportunity to kick the gun that had fallen to the ground far away. Xiao Jixia, you're risking your life for him. Gu Wenyan angrily pounced on me and grabbed my veil, tightening it around my neck. The stinging pain of the lace digging into my skin made my head spin briefly. There was a loud ringing in my ears. This time around, no matter what, I won't let anything happen to Fu Shijue again. He laughed maniacally. Then we'll die together. A sense of suffocation welled up, and I struggled to reach for the pure gold hairpin that had fallen to the ground. With all my strength, I raised my hand and stabbed the hairpin into his thigh. Warm blood gushed out, and Gu Wenyan fell to the ground. The force around my neck loosened. I crawled up on all fours and stumbled towards the door. My whole body was convulsing from the lingering fear. Everything was a blurry mess in front of my eyes. There was only one thought in my mind to support me. Fu Shijue, Xia. Until I fell into a warm embrace. Fu Shijue trembled and hugged me tightly. I stared at him blankly for a few seconds, and then, like a stress response, I frantically reached out to touch his face. Are you okay? Are you hurt? You're still alive. You're still alive. The sound of police sirens rang out, and a group of police officers in uniforms rushed in. Fu Shijue patted my back gently. I'm fine. It's all right now. Don't be afraid. I'm here. My tense nerves finally relaxed, and I burst into tears. Just when I thought it was safe, there was suddenly a commotion behind me. "Watch out!" Fu Shijue suddenly switched our positions. The moment the gunshot rang out, I heard the dull sound of flesh being torn. "Shijue," my scream caught in my throat, and my palm touched his warm blood. Gu Wenyan's manic laughter overlapped with the sinister laughter of the kidnapper in my memory. "I said I would make you wish you were dead." I turned around in disbelief. The next second, the bullet from the SWAT team pierced through Gu Wenyan's forehead. The twisted affection in Gu Wenyan's final gaze solidified into a desolate emptiness. Fu Shijue pressed his forehead against my shoulder socket, his face deathly pale. His body slowly slid down due to the loss of strength. The memories of the previous life came flooding back, and the fear almost overwhelmed me. I frantically pressed on the bleeding wound on his shoulder, my vision blurred by tears. "An ambulance, please. Save him quickly, don't cry." He slowly reached up and touched the corner of my eye. "Shush ya. This time I won't leave you behind." 11. Gu Wenyan died on the spot. The enterprises under his name were also sealed up. Our lives finally gradually returned to normal. Except for Fu Shijue, because he was still in the hospital receiving treatment. To be precise, he had been pretending to be ill and refused to be discharged from the hospital for 2 weeks. "It hurts." Fu Shijue's eyelashes fluttered, and his slightly cool lips rubbed against the side of my neck. "Only a kiss from Shashya can make it better." I saw through his act but didn't expose it, and I held down his hand that was wandering towards the inside of my thigh. "Weren't you saying that you couldn't lift your arm? It seems the rehabilitation is very successful. How about we go through the discharge procedures tomorrow?" He let out a muffled groan and suddenly frowned. His wet eyelashes cast a shadow under his eyes. "I suddenly feel uncomfortable again. Maybe the wound is inflamed." I leaned over pretending to check, and blew a breath against his earlobe. "Is that so? Then it's really serious." I can only try on the new little dress I bought tonight. It's a nurse's style, and it's quite appropriate. I originally wanted to show it to you." I felt the muscles in his thigh tense up instantly. Before I could finish speaking, I was pulled into his arms by him. Fu Shijue held my waist. "Let me take a look." I deliberately pushed him away. "How can that be? The doctor said you need to rest quietly." Fu Shijue was silent for a few seconds, and then he pulled open the bandage to reveal his firm muscles. "Actually, I've almost recovered." I pinched the soft flesh on his waist and sneered. "That's still not allowed." "Why?" Fu Shijue's breathing became a bit heavy. "Didn't Mr. Fu want to pretend to be ill to get my sympathy? Why can't you keep up the act now? Yesterday you pretended that your hand was shaking and made me feed you. The day before yesterday you pretended to be dizzy and wanted to rest your head on my lap." Mr. Fu's acting skills could even win an Oscar. The more I spoke, the angrier I got, and I raised my leg and kicked him. "These things aren't important. The important thing is, do you know how scared I was when the doctor told me you hadn't fully recovered?" Fu Shijue held my ankle. A series of delicate kisses fell, winding their way up. "Wife?" I was wrong. I blushed. "Who's your wife?" Fu Shijue covered his chest and leaned back exaggeratedly. "Oh no, it hurts so much here. Nurse, come and check me quickly." This scene overlapped with that bloody night in my previous life. I sat still. "No, this time it really hurts." He frowned. I immediately became nervous. "Where? What's uncomfortable?" The next second, I was pressed underneath him. The quilt fell over us. Fu Shijue chuckled and said in a hoarse voice, "Please, Miss Nurse, give me a full-body examination." Story 2, in my previous life. When the truck came hurtling towards us, I pushed my mother out of the way and got hit myself. Afterward, I was left paralyzed from the neck down and despised by my entire family. Even my mother called me a debt-collecting demon, saying I had dragged down her life. She would often hold my cousin's hand and say, "She's more like my real daughter." Eventually, I died from abuse. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day of the accident. This time, I didn't save her. Instead, I smiled and said, "Mom, now it's your turn to be the debt-collecting demon." The brakes failed, and cries of "run" filled the air. In disbelief, I looked ahead. A truck, its brakes malfunctioned, was barreling down the road straight towards my mom, who had twisted her ankle and couldn't move. This scene was so familiar, I realized instantly that I had been reborn, back to the day I was 16, the day of the accident. Soon, the truck was upon her. My mom, panicked, turned and pleaded for my help. "Ning Ning, save Mom." In my past life, that was the moment I didn't hesitate to rush out and pull her to safety. She was unharmed then. Meanwhile, I ended up in the hospital for a long time and eventually became paralyzed, confined to a bed for life. After just a few days, my mom grew tired of caring for me and left me with a nanny. ignoring my existence. The nanny, seeing that my family didn't value me, abused me every day. I died full of resentment, and my mom, disgusted by the smell of my body, refused to even look at me until the end, and all this disgust was because I saved her. Coming back to my senses, tears welled up in my eyes. I couldn't believe I had another chance to do things over. Ning ning, save me. The truck was almost upon her, and my mom pleaded again, her eyes begging, but I just smirked at her, withdrew my gaze, and quickly moved to a safer place. After a loud crash, I calmly watched as the truck ran over my mom and said lightly, "Mom, now it's your turn to be the debt-collecting demon." My mom was rushed to the hospital and ended up paralyzed just like me in my previous life. She couldn't accept the reality and wailed in her hospital bed all day, "Why can't I feel my legs at all?" Her disheveled appearance was like that of a madwoman. I approached and said coolly, "Mom, you just can't walk, that's all. You're still alive, aren't you? Making such a fuss is embarrassing. Be mindful of your image." My casual remark made her even more furious. She grabbed a cup beside her and threw it at me. "How dare you say that? Why didn't you save me? You're so malicious. I don't have a daughter like you." I dodged the cup easily and added, "Mom, accusing me like that is moral blackmail." Furious, she cursed me, "You evil creature, has your conscience been eaten by a dog? I'm your real mother." I almost laughed out loud at her frenzy. Now she remembers she's my real mom, but I recall, in my last life, just shedding a few extra tears made her impatiently say my crying was embarrassing, and if she had known she'd be morally blackmailed, she would have preferred I didn't save her. Even after I was discharged, she never visited me again, telling me to face reality since nobody owed me anything. How come now, when it's her turn to suffer the same fate, she can't handle it? I thought she was strong, but it turns out she's only good at spouting cold words. Just then, my dad returned from a business trip. He was heartbroken, holding my mother as he wept bitterly. He assured my mother not to worry, promising to never leave her side. My mother believed him wholeheartedly and even remarked on how fortunate she was to have married such a good husband, but she was far too naive. In my previous life, my father also showed concern for me for a while, but as his guilt faded, he began to ignore me just like my mother did. Later, when my mother brought my cousin, Julie, home, he completely forgot about me, treating her as if she were his own daughter. Even when my cousin mocked me for smelling bad, he simply banished me to the basement. If he could be so heartless to his own biological daughter, how much better could he treat a wife with whom he shares no blood ties? After my mom became paralyzed, she would scream at us all day and constantly suspected my dad of infidelity. We ignored her, and she resorted to cursing us with foul language. "You heartless creatures, is this how you treat me? You will be struck by lightning. Anning, you little wretch, if it weren't for your cowardice, would I be paralyzed? You treat your own mother this way, you'll go to hell." I simply blocked her out as if I couldn't hear. Her rage had nowhere to go, and she was almost spitting blood in frustration. As expected, my father's attitude was just as I anticipated. Initially, he was patient and comforting, but soon enough, his true nature showed, and he became impatient, yelling loudly at her, "Shut your mouth, neither Ning Ning nor I owe you anything. It was your own decision to go out shopping, and you have only yourself to blame for the consequences." Then, he found a reliable caregiver for her and stayed as far away as possible. That was something I couldn't accept. I deliberately fired the competent caregiver and went through numerous agencies until I found Jean Chunhua, the caregiver who abused me in my previous life. Initially, she was reluctant to care for a paralyzed patient because she was used to being lazy and often got fired for it, but she couldn't refuse the high salary I offered. Jean Chunhua seemed honest and dutiful on the surface, but only I knew how psychologically twisted she was behind her facade. Any slight dissatisfaction with her care would result in a beating. I wanted to tell my mother about her crimes, but every time I tried, she just accused me of being difficult and making trouble out of nothing. If that was the case, I was ready to let her experience whether I was really making trouble out of nothing. Meanwhile, I spent my days lamenting to my dad. In other families, kids have their mothers with them, but my mom can only lie in bed, and she smells bad too. I feel so embarrassed. I repeated to my dad the words my mother had once said, deliberately leaving the bedroom door open for her to hear. Immediately, curses came from the bedroom. "You heartless dogs, I'm not dead yet, and you despise me like this." Her screams were piercing. My dad and I tacitly ignored her, and then I shyly told my dad, "I like Auntie Liu. I wish she were my mom." My dad's look changed instantly. "Do you really think so?" I nodded timidly, and seeing my response, his eyes sparkled. I knew then that I had him figured out. Liu was my dad's first love and the woman my mother despised the most in her life, since in my previous life my mother had brought home my most disliked cousin, Zhu Lei, and treated her like her own daughter. This life, I decided to learn from her and bring home her most despised rival to treat as my own mother. My dad indeed had never stopped thinking about Liu. I had only mentioned her briefly, and within a few days, he started inviting Liu to our home often under the guise of work. I was very pleased with my dad's efficiency and greeted Liu with a smile. "Hello, Auntie," but she instinctively stepped back a few steps. She looked at me defensively. "What do you want to do?" She avoided me as if I were a catastrophic flood or a ferocious beast. I wasn't surprised by her reaction. Growing up, I always listened to my mom, who disliked Liu. Behind her back, she would often call her names like Vixen or Little Temptress, accusing her of trying to steal my dad away and making me a fatherless child. So, I disliked her too. Liu worked at my dad's company, and whenever I saw her there, I took pleasure in making things difficult for her. I often left her blushing with embarrassment from my scolding, yet, because of my dad, she never dared to confront me and always found me a headache. I always thought she hated me deeply, but to my surprise, after I became paralyzed in my previous life, she was the only one who pitied me and occasionally visited. She even persuaded my dad to give me a grander funeral after I died. To her, these actions might have been simple gestures, but for me, they were the only light during those darkest days. I smiled at her and said, "Auntie, don't worry, I won't bully you anymore." Liu still looked at me with suspicion, probably thinking I was plotting an even bigger scheme against her, but there was no rush. In time, I would show her my goodwill. In the months that followed, we got along very well, and her wariness towards me completely dissolved. Sometimes when the three of us went out together, people would mistake Liu for my real mother. Interestingly enough, Liu and I shared a slight resemblance, which made us look like mother and daughter. Whenever someone mentioned this, my dad's expression would flicker with an unspoken emotion. But just as we were enjoying ourselves, my mother's ordeal was just beginning. She was forced to listen to our laughter and joyful conversations from her bedroom and endure the cruelty of the caretaker, Li Chunhua. I had secretly installed a camera in her room and often saw Li Chunhua violently pulling my mom's hair and smashing her head against the bed. If my mom refused to eat, Li Chunhua would forcibly pry her mouth open and shove food in. "You're disabled. What high ground do you think you're on? The food is just a bit spoiled. Don't trouble me to make it again, just eat it." Once the proudest person, she now resembled an abused stray dog, tortured beyond her limits. She begged me for help and accused Li Chunhua of her brutality, but I just told her impatiently, "Stop making trouble. Do you know how hard it is to find a caretaker for someone disabled like you? Can you stop causing problems for Dad and me? It's just your paranoia because of your paralysis. Auntie Li is so good, can't you be more positive?" I sighed. "Ah. You're really a curse on me and Dad. We must be really unlucky." I was throwing back at her the exact words she used to say to me. Furious, my mom nearly choked. "You little wretch, I am your real mother, and you call me a curse. I could kill you. Auntie Li may be good, but she's not your real mom, you blind and heartless fool." She lunged at me with her hands, but lacking any strength, she just fell off the bed. I let her thrash about on the floor, not even sparing her a glance, just as she had done to me in the past life. Then, deliberately provoking her, I instructed Li Chunhua in a clear, measured tone, "Keep her quiet. Auntie Li is coming over to celebrate my birthday. Make sure she doesn't ruin our family of three's mood." Li Chunhua quickly nodded in agreement, promising repeatedly not to let my mom disturb us. I turned and walked out, leaving my mom raging behind me. She pointed at me and demanded, "What did you say, you little wretch? Who are you calling a family of three? Have you no conscience? Are those even human words to say? I am your real mother." I simply shut the door behind me, not giving her a second glance. My real mother. I clearly remember that on this day in my past life, my cousin Zhu Lei came to visit us. My mother was ecstatic and personally cooked a lavish dinner for her. She even made a special trip to my room to instruct Li Chunhua to make sure the so-called bad luck charm, didn't dampen the spirits of their family gathering. At that time, I was in bed eating leftovers, listening to their laughter and joy, wanting to cry, but Li Chunhua stuffed a cloth in my mouth. When my cousin heard my sobbing, she asked my mother what that sound was, but my mother dismissed it as the family dog being disobedient. And now, what I'm doing is merely learning from her. I closed the door, shutting out her cries of distress. Just as I walked into the living room, the doorbell rang. Glancing at the calendar, I guessed it was my opportunistic cousin at the door. In my past life, I suffered endlessly at her hands, but this life is different. I'm curious to see what tricks she might try. When my father heard the long ringing of the doorbell, thinking no one was in the living room, he came down to answer it himself. Julie, seeing that it wasn't my mother who opened the door, paused in confusion and muttered softly, "Why is it different from before? Could I have remembered wrongly?" Then timidly, she said, "Hello, uncle, I'm your wife's niece. You might not have met me before. My name is Julie." Niece? My father was puzzled. After all, everyone from my mother's family had passed away, and he had never heard of any living relatives. Actually, I always found it strange in my previous life. Julie seemed to appear out of nowhere, as my mother had never mentioned her, but she looked so much like my mother. Clearly there was a blood relationship. My father didn't probe further, but now that I think about it, it really is mysterious. I reminded my father, "Mom doesn't have any nieces, she was clearly an orphan." "Dad, this person must be a scammer." My father then looked at her with suspicion. "I've never heard my wife mention having any nieces. Are you sure you're not mistaken?" Julie replied with a look of hurt, "I'm not a scammer, uncle, please believe me. May I come in and explain slowly?" "No." Before my father could respond, I stepped forward and spoke first, covering my nose in disgust. "Dad, why is she so dirty? Is she a beggar? Let's not let her in, or she'll dirty our newly laid carpet." Julie heard my words, clenched her teeth in anger. "Who are you calling a beggar?" Then, recognizing my face, she was as surprised as if she had seen a ghost. She took a couple of steps back, pointing at me with a trembling voice. Are you Anning?" "Yes, how do you know my name?" I pinched the hem of my skirt, looking down at her haughtily, like a princess scrutinizing her servant, just like the way she used to look at me in my past life. Julie rushed up to me in disbelief, then stared intently at my legs. "You were supposed to be paralyzed at this time. Why are you perfectly fine now? Where is my aunt? I want to see her." At that moment, I realized, Julie had also been reborn. My father saw her grabbing my arm and pushed her aside. "What on earth are you raving about? Paralysis? Are you cursing my precious daughter? Dare to harm my daughter and you'll have me to deal with." Julie, used to bullying me in the past life, was still adjusting to the changes in this life. Hearing my father scolding, she looked up at him incredulously and protested, "Dad, why are you speaking to me like this? I am Lele. You used to say I was the sweetest girl in the world. Why have you changed?" "Unfortunately, this isn't the past life anymore. In my father's eyes, there's only me, his daughter." He looked at her as if she were insane. "Are you out of your mind? Who do you think your father is? I can't understand a word you're saying." I looked at her with pity. She must be mentally ill, maybe even escaped from an asylum. My attitude only agitated her further. "Shut up, you have no say in this house." "No. Something must be wrong. Where is my aunt? I need to see her." Julie obviously couldn't face reality and insisted on seeing my mother. Impatiently, my father pointed towards the bedroom. "Are you sick? It's my daughter's home. She can say whatever she wants. Your aunt is lying inside. Go see her if you want. But don't say I didn't warn you. Your aunt is mad now, and if she hurts you, it's not our responsibility." Julie was hurt by my father's attitude, but at that moment, she couldn't care less and ran straight into the bedroom where my mother was. "I know you don't remember the past, uncle, but it's not your fault. I'll have my aunt explain who I am later, and then you'll like me again. Don't worry, I won't be mad at you, but I don't like this. Anning, you can only have me as your daughter, and you will have to drive her out later." My father was dumbfounded and didn't even know how to respond. After all, who can reason with a mad person? She confidently pushed open the bedroom door, full of anticipation, only to see my mother had just wet the bed and was being slapped by Li Chunhua. Li Chunhua, seeing us enter, awkwardly withdrew her hand, but seeing that neither my father nor I reprimanded her, she regained her confidence. Julie, however, collapsed. "Ah, how could this be?" she screamed, pulling Li Chunhua away, disbelievingly staring at my mother. "Are you really my aunt? No, how could you turn into this?" My mother had aged a lot after the car accident, looking nothing like her former graceful self. Julie struggled to reconcile this image with the aunt she knew from before. "Because my mom had a car accident, that's why she looks like this now." "Didn't you have something to say to her? Then say it quickly." Seeing Julie confused, I kindly explained. When my mother saw Julie, she suddenly became spirited, tearfully looking at her. Lei, you finally came to see your aunt. I've missed you so much, please save me, they are all bad people trying to kill me. My mother reached out to touch Zhu Lei's face, but her dirty hand, even stained with urine, hadn't touched Zhu Lei when she screamed and dodged away. No, you're lying, my aunt is beautiful and elegant, how could she look like this? My mother had hoped Zhu Lei would take good care of her and that they could live well from now on, but hearing Zhu Lei's words, the hope in her eyes shattered. Lei. I really am your aunt. Zhu Lei collapsed to the ground, muttering to herself, no, something must be wrong, why has it turned out like this, why? I watched her coldly from above, then, the next moment, Zhu Lei looked up at me, she stood up, ran to me, and grabbed my hands accusingly. Did you do something? Why isn't it you who's paralyzed but my aunt? What did you do? I explained, nobody did anything. It was a truck that malfunctioned and hit my mom, making her like this. Dad and I are also very upset. Angrily, she cursed at me, you didn't save her, you're her daughter, you wretch, you ruined everything, I'm going to kill you, she exclaimed. Before I could even respond, my dad stepped in to defend me, you lunatic, cursing my precious daughter again. Get out now, you're not welcome here. My dad pried Zhu Lei's hand off me and dragged her all the way to the front door, intending to throw her out. Throughout, Zhu Lei tried to convince my dad, you'll regret kicking me out, you'll grow to love me very much, and I'll be your only beloved daughter. Unfortunately, my dad didn't have the memories of a past life and simply thought she was mentally ill. What are you even talking about? You're crazy. Get out now, or I'll call the police. Zhu Lei was chased out but lingered at our doorstep, refusing to leave. Later, it started raining, and she was drenched through. The next morning, as my dad was preparing to leave for work, he opened the door to find a disheveled Zhu Lei. After a night to cool off, she seemed to have accepted reality. She no longer spoke of past lives but instead pleaded pitifully, Uncle, I'm sorry, I wasn't thinking straight yesterday, but please. Could you take me in for the sake of the many years you've been married to my aunt? I really have nowhere else to go. Although Zhu Lei was not particularly attractive, she was still a young girl. Added to that, although my dad was growing tired of my mom, he still harbored some old affections deep down. He hesitated for a moment but ultimately nodded in agreement. Fine, you can stay, but don't cause any trouble, or I'll kick you out at any time. But Zhu Lei didn't hear my dad's warning. She only caught the first part, then she looked at me with a provocative smile. It was as if her smile said, see, even if we start over, you're still no match for me. I ignored her provocation, rubbed my sleepy eyes, and pointed at her, asking my dad, Dad, are you planning to keep her as a servant? Perfect, I need a maid, and you're so kind. I deliberately used language that was demeaning. Zhu Lei was easily provoked by my words. What are you talking about? Who is your, unfortunately? She couldn't finish her sentence before my dad spoke up. Right, you can just tell her to do whatever needs to be done, since she's staying here for free, it can be her rent. Zhu Lei's eyes widened, frozen in place. Clearly, she thought that by staying here, she could live a pampered life like in her past life. The huge disparity stunned her momentarily. What, you don't want to? Hearing my words, my dad frowned. Since you're unwilling, we won't force you, you can leave. No, I'm willing. Very willing, I nodded in satisfaction, walked over to her, sat down on a stool in front of her, and stretched out my foot, put on my shoes. Zhu Lei looked as if she had been greatly insulted, her expression uglier than if her own mother had died. Seeing her furious reaction, I couldn't help but laugh. So, you can't take it anymore, but there are more embarrassing things yet to come. This weekend, I invited some classmates over to my house. These classmates were also friends with Zhu Lei in her past life, and they got along well. I thought having them around would double her humiliation. To ensure Zhu Lei felt sufficiently embarrassed, I made sure she served us up close. My classmates and I gathered around the dining table. Zhu Lei stood behind us, ready to serve tea and water. I wonder how she felt seeing the people who were so close to her in her past life. What would it feel like to perceive oneself as a servant now? Someone asked. Who is this? My servant, I said nonchalantly. Zhu Lei's face turned red with embarrassment when she heard the word servant, as if she had been deeply humiliated. But this was just the beginning. Fill up my glass, demanded Zhou Lin, the most handsome guy at school, looking impatiently at Zhu Lei. And Ning, your maid is not well trained. The glass is empty, and she doesn't even take the initiative to refill it. Don't be too kind. He continued, some people are just born to be trampled on. The nicer you are to them, the more they'll take advantage of you. Humiliated, Julie stepped forward to pour the wine but, overwhelmed by emotion, spilled it all over the table. Jolin cursed under his breath, then a sleazy smile spread across his face, clearly plotting something sinister. As I expected, he next said, "This wine is very expensive, it can't be wasted, lick it up from the table and the floor, quickly." Julie's face was filled with sorrow. And I knew she couldn't take it anymore. In a past life, Jolin had been devoted to Julie. He had fallen in love with her at first sight and had even humiliated me, who was paralyzed, repeatedly for her sake. I remember him saying that I, confined to a wheelchair, looked like a disgusting dead dog. Back then, I thought his feelings for Julie were genuine, but now, seeing them reunite in this life without her dazzling status, the love at first sight was nowhere to be seen. How ironic. Julie had been able to endure until now, but after hearing his cruel words, she couldn't hold back any longer. With tears brimming in her eyes, she looked at Jolin and said, "You used to say that you would always treat me well, whether I loved you or not. Why are you bullying me like this now?" Jolin was stunned by her question and took a long time to regain his composure. "What are you talking about? Are you crazy? I don't even know you. And you're talking about love, look at yourself. So pitiful, and you don't even dare to look in the mirror." But Julie remained engulfed in her sadness, unwilling to step out of it. She confronted the other students present. "I was supposed to be your best friend, and Ning is a fake. I am the real daughter of the Yin family. She must be crazy, right? Has she been reading too many novels and started taking her fantasies for reality?" the students said, looking at her as if she were mentally ill, humiliated. She turned and wanted to flee to the basement where she lived to cry. I reminded her, "You can't cry now. We still need you to serve us. If you don't stay here, I'll tell Dad to kick you out." Hearing my words, Julie stopped in her tracks, her teeth grinding audibly, but she couldn't change her situation. To avoid being thrown out, she had to come and serve me obediently. Watching her angry expression, I could only sneer. This was the treatment she deserved, in a previous life. I believed in familial love and let her take advantage of me and enjoy a fortune that wasn't hers. To think she believed she was entitled to it was utterly ludicrous. Then, she numbly continued to serve us tea and water, her eyes seemingly filled with immense hatred. When everyone had left, I was about to return to my room to rest, but suddenly, Julie stopped me. She looked at me for a long time before finally speaking. "You've been reborn too, haven't you?" I looked up. Meeting her resentful gaze, Julie said word by word, "I thought it was strange before, but now I'm sure of it. I'm not the only one who's been reborn, right? So, in this life, it was your aunt who was in the car accident, not you." I lifted my head and looked down at her. "You're only realizing this now. You're even more foolish than I thought, but what can you change by knowing? You're still not even fit to carry my shoes." My words struck a nerve, and she began to curse at me furiously. "Bitch, I trampled you underfoot in our previous life, and I can do it again in this life. I'm going to kill you right now." She rushed over and grabbed my neck. "So what if you've been reborn? All of this belongs to me, and you, bitch, deserve to die." She squeezed hard, clearly intent on killing me. However, I chose not to struggle because I saw my father returning with Liu. As they entered the room, they were shocked by the scene before them. Then my father rushed over and kicked Julie aside. Julie was knocked about a meter away and collapsed on the ground, gasping for breath. Liu was terrified and kept comforting me. I gave her a reassuring smile, which calmed her down somewhat. Then I whispered to her, "Is everything taken care of?" She nodded confidently, indicating that everything was in order, and my long-standing anxiety finally eased. After a while, Julie recovered and managed to stagger to her feet. She screamed at my father, "Dad, I'm your precious daughter. This bitch hates you. In her previous life, you treated her poorly, so she tried everything to kill you." My father, annoyed, furrowed his brows. "You're crazy, spouting nonsense again. I'm not your father. I only have one daughter." Adding, "If you want to go around claiming fathers, please find someone else, but for now, you need to stay at the police station." As soon as he finished speaking, police sirens sounded outside. The police had arrived. Julie looked at my father incredulously. "You actually called the police to arrest me?" My father ignored her, and she continued to rant. "You will regret this decision, and I will not forgive you easily." Then she turned to me with a sinister smile. "Don't be too smug. You never know who will have the last laugh." With those final words, Julie was taken away by the police. Her smile sent shivers down my spine. In the years that followed, Julie never reappeared in our lives. but whenever I thought of her creepy smile, I felt uneasy. To be safe, I hired a private detective to follow her. Everything seemed normal. Just when I let my guard down, she reappeared. I was out shopping with my father and Liu when Zhu suddenly appeared, her face grim. "We meet again," she looked at me with a strange smile. "Do you remember what I said the last time we met?" I avoided her gaze and pondered, while my father impatiently said, "Didn't you have enough of the detention center last time? Keep acting crazy, and I'll send you back. Move aside, you lunatic." Despite being hurt by his words, Zhu didn't react violently. Instead, she stepped closer, patted my father on the shoulder, and whispered in his ear, "Daddy, I've suffered too much. Please come back and protect me, madwoman." My father pushed her away and left with me and Liu. We didn't dwell on the incident, but that evening, my father began to suffer agonizing headaches. We rushed him to the hospital overnight. All the examinations showed no issues, yet my father remained in a deep sleep, showing no signs of waking. After 3 days and nights of unconsciousness, he finally woke up on the 4th day. Seeing his eyes open, Liu and I rushed over. "Dad, you're finally awake, you had us worried." But my father looked at me indifferently and then asked, "Where is Lei? What have you done to her?" Liu was stunned. Seeing my father's abnormal behavior, I instantly realized what was happening. Somehow, thanks to what Zhu had done, my father had been reborn. As Liu and I exchanged puzzled looks, Zhu suddenly appeared out of nowhere. She rushed to my father's bedside, hugged him, and cried, "Dad, you're finally back. Lei has suffered a lot while you were gone." Then she turned her gaze towards me, her eyes gleaming with a triumphant smile. "It's time you returned what belongs to me." After my father was reborn, his attitude towards me plummeted. He kicked me out of the house, even claiming that Zhu was his only daughter. The day I packed my things and left, Zhu stood in front of me, gloating. "Enjoyed being the precious daughter for so long. Just keep that smirk to yourself, you shameless thief. But I'm quite generous if you kneel and beg. I might just keep you as my maid." Her righteous demeanor could fool anyone into thinking she was indeed my father's biological daughter, shameless to the core. At this point, arguing with her seemed pointless. I picked up my luggage and left home. A few minutes later, Liu came to pick me up. In the car, she looked at me with some relief and said, "After all the effort we've put into this for so long, it's finally time to wrap things up." In fact, Liu and I had been subtly undermining my father's authority over the years. Now, the incorporation was already under my control. My outwardly sweet demeanor and calling him dad was just a facade to deceive him. The main culprits behind my past misfortunes were indeed my mother and Zhu, but this despicable accomplice, my father, would not escape responsibility. Those who wronged me, I would not let go. Poor Zhu, solely focused on outdoing me for my father's affection. Not realizing that I had no need for such trivial things, what I wanted was the power to control everything. The day Liu and I went to take over the company, we coincidentally ran into Zhu delivering a lovingly prepared lunchbox for my father. Seeing me, she arrogantly asked, "Couldn't survive outside, so you've come to beg Dad and me to take you in? Excuse me, let our president in through." Liu stepped in front of me. "President in? You're actually calling her president in? Have you lost your mind? Don't forget you're just my dad's assistant. Even if my dad likes you, it's useless. You can't compare to me. Believe it or not, I can get Dad to fire you." Liu looked at her as if she were a mere jester. "You're not aware, and Ning now holds 80% of the company's shares, making her the largest shareholder." Zhu eyes widened, clearly struggling to digest this devastating news for her. She rushed towards me, grabbed my wrist, and demanded, "Impossible. How could this be? You must have tricked me, right?" Despite her questions, the increasingly melancholic mood of my father in recent days had already given her a premonition. She just didn't want to face reality. Soon after, my father was taken away by the authorities for bribery, with the evidence provided by me. Poor Zhu, after all her efforts and even sacrificing her body in deals with foreign sorcerers for my father's rebirth, found herself with nothing just as her good days were beginning. If she knew that I personally arranged that mage, I wonder if she'd hate me even more, wishing she could kill me. As for my father's rebirth, it was all orchestrated by me. After all, there's no fun in revenge if he doesn't know the truth. What I wanted was for him to be punished in his past life too. Later, Zhu disappeared. I vaguely heard that she was deceived and taken to northern Myanmar. Unfortunately, she wasn't very attractive or smart, and didn't hold much high value. She always claimed she was the young mistress of the Yin family, believing someone would pay ransom for her. The scam group called the company, and it was Liu who answered. She coldly informed them that there was only one young mistress in the family, who was currently busy handling company affairs. Angered by her words, the scammer sold her to a pig farm, where she was forced to continuously serve as a surrogate for wealthy people, constantly bearing children. When she finally lost her value, she was thrown into a shredder, ending her absurd life. Meanwhile, my father suffered a cerebral hemorrhage. Although his life was saved, he was left bedridden, dependent on others for care. I arranged for him and my mother to stay in the same room, letting them hurl insults and accusations at each other, while still having the nanny, Li Chunhua, take care of them. Li Chunhua truly excelled, and within a year, she had worn them down to near death. That's when I finally felt a sense of relief, and then I took out the family surveillance footage and sent Li Chunhua straight to prison. Because of the severity of the case, Li Chunhua received a heavy sentence, finally receiving the punishment she deserved for abusing me in her past life. After settling these matters, I took a deep breath, changed into a fine dress, and prepared to welcome the public listing of our company. Li Yu, standing by, looked at me with a confident air and smiled contentedly, then remarked, "Your wish from your past life has been fulfilled. You've reclaimed the life that was rightfully yours." Hearing her words, I looked up towards the distant sky. Indeed, I had finally reclaimed everything I had lost, and my life was just beginning. In the future, I aimed to stand at even greater heights and look down upon the whole world.